when 9-year-old Emma Grace Peterson stood at Pump 4 of a Travel America truck stop outside Nashville, Tennessee on a humid Saturday afternoon in late June, wearing a pink t-shirt with the words, "Help Me" scrawled in shaky black marker across the back. She didn't know if anyone would notice, if anyone would care, or if the woman who'd taken her 3 days ago would see what she'd done before someone else did. The shirt had been clean when they'd stopped at a Walmart that morning, and Emma had found the marker in the bathroom while the woman was yelling at someone on her phone outside the stall, had written those 2 words as neatly as her shaking hands could manage, had put her hoodie back on to hide what she'd done, and had been waiting ever since for someone, anyone, to see. That someone turned out to be James Reaper Malone, a 52-year-old former Marine and Sergeant-at-Arms for the Cumberland Riders Motorcycle Club, who'd pulled in for diesel and a coffee and whose training from 2 decades of military police work made him notice things other people missed, like a young girl whose body language screamed wrong, whose eyes kept darting toward a woman who stood too close and gripped too tight, and whose pink t-shirt, visible for just 3 seconds when she bent down to tie her shoe and her hoodie rode up, had 2 words written in marker that made his blood run cold. The Travel America sat at the junction where Interstate 24 met Highway 41, one of those massive truck stops that served as a waypoint for long-haul drivers, families on road trips, and anyone needing fuel between Nashville and Chattanooga. It was 2:47 in the afternoon, the kind of thick summer heat that made asphalt soft and turned truck cabs into ovens. The parking lot was packed with 18-wheelers, RVs, cars with out-of-state plates, and the constant flow of people moving between pumps in the building that housed restrooms, a convenience store, a fast food counter, and rows of travel supplies. Reaper had been riding since dawn, making his way back to Nashville from a Cumberland Riders event in Knoxville. He was a big man, 6'3", and 240 pounds of muscle that hadn't softened much despite being in his 50s, with a shaved head, a thick black beard going gray at the edges, and arms covered in tattoos that told the story of 20 years in the Marine Corps, followed by another 15 in a motorcycle club that took care of veterans and raised money for children's charities. His leather vest bore the Cumberland Riders patches, a military service rocker, and various pins from rides and events that marked him as a man who'd earned his place in a brotherhood built on honor and watching each other's backs. He'd pulled his Road King up to the diesel pumps, killed the engine, and was stretching his legs when he noticed them. A woman in her late 30s with badly dyed blonde hair, too much makeup, wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky, and an outfit that looked expensive but somehow cheap at the same time, was standing beside a silver Honda Accord at the pump directly across from his bike. Next to her, holding her hand in a grip that looked uncomfortable even from 15 feet away, was a young girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, with light brown hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing jean shorts, white sneakers, and a pink t-shirt with a purple hoodie over it despite the oppressive heat. The girl's appearance didn't match the woman's carefully constructed image. The woman looked polished and controlled. The girl looked like she'd been dressed in whatever was available, her clothes wrinkled, her sneakers scuffed and dirty, her face pale beneath what looked like days of accumulated exhaustion. But it wasn't the mismatched appearance that caught Reaper's attention first. It was the girl's face and body language. He'd spent 20 years as a Marine MP, dealing with everything from domestic disturbances to missing persons cases. He'd worked child welfare investigations, had testified in family court more times than he could count, and he knew what a frightened child looked like. This girl's eyes were too wide, too watchful, scanning the parking lot with the kind of desperate attention that came from looking for escape or help or something that wasn't there. Her small body was rigid with tension, even while being pulled along, her shoulders hunched in a way that suggested she was trying to make herself smaller, less noticeable. Her free hand kept twitching toward her face like she wanted to wipe tears or cover her mouth, but stopped herself each time. Reaper started pumping diesel into his bike while keeping his attention on the pair across the way. The woman finished fueling, returned the nozzle to the pump, and started walking the girl toward the building. The girl's steps were reluctant, dragging slightly, and the woman's grip on her hand tightened with each hesitation. They were maybe 10 feet from the door when the girl bent down suddenly to tie her shoe, and her hoodie rode up in the back, and Reaper saw it. 2 words written in black marker across the back of her pink t-shirt, shaky but clear. Help me." His heart slammed against his ribs. The woman yanked the girl upright before Reaper could process what he'd seen, and the hoodie fell back into place, hiding the message. But those two words were burned into his vision now, and every instinct he'd honed over decades of law enforcement and military service was screaming that something was catastrophically wrong. He watched the woman pull the girl through the doors into the building, watched them disappear toward the restroom area, and made a decision that would either save a child's life or make him look like a paranoid fool who'd misread an innocent situation. Reaper pulled out his phone and dialed 911 while walking quickly toward the building entrance. The diesel pump clicked off behind him, forgotten. The dispatcher answered on the second ring, and Reaper's voice was calm but carried the authority of someone who'd given life-or-death situation reports hundreds of times before. "This is James Malone, retired Marine MP. I'm at the Travel America on Highway 41, just off of 24 eastbound. I need law enforcement here immediately. I just observed a young girl, approximately 9 or 10 years old, wearing a pink t-shirt with the words, 'Help me' written in marker on the back. She's with an adult woman who appears to be restraining her. The girl's body language indicates extreme distress. This could be an abduction or trafficking situation." The dispatcher's voice sharpened with focus. "Sir, can you maintain visual contact without engaging? Officers are being dispatched now. Can you describe the subjects?" Reaper provided descriptions while entering the building, scanning the interior for the pair. Woman in her late 30s, bleached blonde hair, sunglasses, approximately 5'6", wearing a black tank top and jeans. Child is 9 or 10, light brown hair and ponytail, pink t-shirt, jean shorts, white sneakers. They entered the building heading toward the restrooms about 90 seconds ago. Vehicle is a silver Honda Accord, Tennessee plates. He rattled off the plate number he'd memorized with the automatic precision of someone trained to observe and retain details under pressure. The building's interior was crowded with travelers, families buying snacks, truckers grabbing coffee, people using restrooms and browsing aisles of road trip supplies. Reaper moved through the space with purpose, his size and leather vest causing some people to give him space, his eyes scanning for a pink t-shirt and blonde hair. He spotted them near the back of the store, the woman pulling the girl toward the exit that led to the food court area. The girl was looking around again with those desperate searching eyes, and when her gaze swept past Reaper, something in her expression shifted. Recognition of someone who might help, or maybe just the hope that someone was paying attention when no one else seemed to be. "Sir, officers are approximately 4 minutes out," the dispatcher said in his ear. "Do not approach or engage. Maintain visual contact only." Reaper acknowledged but kept moving closer, closing the distance to about 20 feet. The woman stopped at a display of sunglasses, pulled a pair off the rack, and removed her own to try on the new ones. Without the sunglasses hiding her face, Reaper could see her expression clearly now. Tension around her mouth, eyes that kept darting toward exits and entrances, the look of someone who was calculating and planning and very aware she was in a public space where things could go wrong. The girl stood beside her, small hand still trapped in the woman's grip, and her gaze found Reaper again. This time she held it for 3 full seconds, and in those seconds, Reaper saw pure terror mixed with desperate pleading. He gave her the smallest nod, a gesture that said, "I see you, I know something's wrong. Help is coming." And the girl's eyes filled with tears that she blinked back rapidly. The woman replaced the sunglasses on the rack without buying them, put her own back on, and started pulling the girl toward the food court exit. Reaper followed at a distance, still on the line with dispatch, providing real-time updates. They're moving toward the south exit near the food court. The woman appears agitated. She keeps checking her surroundings. The child is crying, but trying to hide it. The woman pushed through the exit doors, pulling the girl across the parking lot toward the silver Honda. Reaper followed them outside, no longer caring if he was spotted, because if they got in that car and drove away before police arrived, the girl would be gone. The woman must have sensed his presence because she turned suddenly, saw him walking toward her, and her face went through a rapid series of expressions: confusion, recognition of threat, then something cold and calculated. She walked faster, almost dragging the girl now, covering the 30 feet to her car in seconds. Reaper broke into a jog, and the woman's control fractured. She shoved the girl toward the passenger side and rushed to the driver's door. "Get in the car, Emma! Now!" The woman's voice was sharp and commanding, carrying across the parking lot. The girl, Emma, scrambled to open the passenger door, but her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't work the handle. The woman got behind the wheel, started the engine, and reached across to unlock the passenger door manually. Reaper was 15 feet away when Emma finally got the door open and climbed inside, and he saw her turn in her seat to look at him through the window, and the expression on her face was one of absolute desperation. The Honda's engine roared as the woman threw it in reverse, but Reaper had already positioned himself directly behind the vehicle. She couldn't back up without hitting him, and he stood there, a massive figure in leather blocking her path, pulling his motorcycle around on the bike stand to create an additional obstacle. The woman's face appeared in the side mirror, twisted with rage and panic, and she started honking the horn in long, aggressive blasts. Reaper spoke into his phone, calm despite his hammering heart. "She's attempting to leave. I've blocked her vehicle in the parking lot. She's becoming aggressive. The girl is in the passenger seat. I need those units here now. Where are they?" 90 seconds out, sir. Stay on the line. Do not engage physically." The woman threw the Honda into drive and started moving forward, trying to go around Reaper's bike, but he shifted position again, staying in her path. Other travelers were starting to notice the confrontation now, stopping to watch this scene unfold. The woman laid on the horn again, and this time she rolled down her window and screamed at him. "Move your bike! You're blocking me in! I'll call the police!" "Call them," Reaper said evenly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "They're already on their way. Because that little girl in your car has help me written on her shirt, and I'm not letting you drive away with her." The woman's face went white, then red, and she screamed something incoherent before throwing the Honda in reverse again, this time jerking the wheel hard to try to get around Reaper's position. She clipped a shopping cart, sending it rolling, and accelerated toward a different exit lane. But Reaper had seen the maneuver coming and was already moving, jogging alongside her car, staying visible, making sure she knew she was being tracked. And then he heard it. The sirens. 2 Tennessee Highway Patrol cruisers came screaming into the parking lot from opposite directions, lights blazing, cutting off both exit lanes. The Honda screeched to a stop, boxed in by police vehicles, by Reaper's presence, by the reality that her attempted escape had failed. Officers emerged with hands on weapons, voices carrying the command authority of law enforcement in crisis mode. "Driver, turn off the engine. Show me your hands. Put your hands where I can see them right now." The woman's door opened slowly, and she stepped out with her hands raised, her face a carefully constructed mask of confused innocence. "Officer, I don't understand what's happening. This is my niece. We're just traveling through. I haven't done anything wrong." One trooper kept his weapon trained on her while his partner moved to the passenger side of the Honda. Reaper stood back now, letting law enforcement take control, but his eyes never left the car where Emma sat frozen in the passenger seat. The officer opened the passenger door and knelt down to the girl's level, his voice gentle despite the tension of the situation. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's your name? Can you tell me your name?" Reaper couldn't hear Emma's response from where he stood, but he saw the officer's body language change immediately, tension increasing, his hand going to his radio. Within seconds, the officer was speaking rapidly into his radio, and another cruiser was pulling into the lot. A sergeant emerged from the third vehicle and approached Reaper, while other officers secured the woman and began the process of separating her from Emma. "Mr. Malone, I'm Sergeant Linda Crawford. You're the one who called this in." Reaper nodded and provided a concise report of everything he'd observed, from the girl's fearful body language to the 2 words written on her shirt to the woman's panicked attempt to flee. "I spent 20 years as a Marine MP," he told Crawford. "I've worked child welfare cases and missing persons investigations. That girl's body language indicated she was being held against her will. The message on her shirt confirmed it. I wasn't going to let her disappear." Crawford's expression was grim but grateful. "Your instincts were correct, Mr. Malone. The girl is Emma Grace Peterson, 9 years old, reported missing from a playground in Murfreesboro 3 days ago. She was taken by a woman later identified as Diane Keswick, who had been volunteering at an after-school program where Emma attended. Keswick told Emma her mother had been in an accident and she was supposed to pick her up, then drove her out of state. We've been searching for this child for 72 hours. If you hadn't noticed that shirt, if you hadn't acted, she would have been across state lines within an hour, and we might never have found her." Reaper felt his throat tighten. 3 days. This little girl had been with her abductor for 3 full days, and she'd been desperate enough to write a message on her own clothing, hoping someone would see. "How is she?" he asked quietly. "Terrified, but physically unharmed as far as we can tell. EMTs are checking her now. Her parents have been notified and they're driving here from Murfreesboro. Should arrive in about 45 minutes. Crawford paused, studying Reaper's face, taking in the leather vest and patches that marked him as part of a culture many law enforcement officers viewed with suspicion. "Mr. Malone, what you did today took courage and good judgment. A lot of people would have looked away or convinced themselves it wasn't their business. You saw something wrong and you acted on it, and because of that, Emma Peterson is going home to her family tonight instead of disappearing into a nightmare." Reaper watched as officers led Diane Keswick to a patrol car, her carefully maintained facade crumbling now into tears and desperate denials. Emma sat in the back of an ambulance wrapped in a blanket despite the summer heat, a female EMT sitting beside her and speaking quietly while examining her for injuries. The girl kept looking around the parking lot as if still expecting danger, still trapped in survival mode, and when her eyes found Reaper standing 30 feet away, she stared at him with an intensity that pierced straight through his chest. He raised one hand in a small wave, and Emma lifted her own hand in response, a gesture so tentative and fragile it made him want to break something. The parking lot had become a command center now. Multiple patrol vehicles with lights still flashing, EMT unit with its back doors open, officers taking statements from witnesses who'd seen parts of the confrontation, crime scene tape cordoning off the silver Honda as evidence. Reaper gave his formal statement to a detective who'd arrived from the Highway Patrol's Criminal Investigation Division, providing every detail he could remember with the precision of someone trained in report writing. The detective thanked him, collected his contact information, and told him they'd likely need him to testify when the case went to trial. Reaper said he'd be there for whatever they needed. He was walking back toward his bike, thinking the situation was resolved and he could continue his ride home, when Sergeant Crawford approached him again. "Mr. Malone, Emma is asking to talk to you. She's been very insistent. We don't normally allow this kind of contact, but she says you're the person who saw her message, and she needs to thank you. Her parents aren't here yet, and she's extremely agitated. We think it might help her to have closure on this moment. Would you be willing to speak with her briefly?" Reaper followed Crawford to the ambulance where Emma sat with her feet dangling over the edge, still wrapped in that blanket, her face scrubbed clean now, but her eyes still carrying the shadow of 3 days of terror. The EMT stepped aside to give them space, and Reaper knelt down so he was at Emma's eye level instead of towering over her. "Hey, Emma," he said gently, "I'm glad you're safe now." The girl looked at him for a long moment, her small face working through emotions too complex for a 9-year-old to process, and then she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "You saw my shirt. I wrote it this morning in the bathroom at Walmart when she wasn't looking. I tried to show it to people, but everyone was too busy or didn't notice, or maybe they saw it and didn't care. But you saw it, and you helped me." Reaper felt his eyes burning, and he blinked hard against the sensation. "You were incredibly brave, Emma. Writing that message and then having the courage to show it to people even when they didn't respond, that took more strength than most adults have. You saved yourself by being smart and not giving up. I just helped finish what you started." Emma's lower lip trembled and tears started sliding down her cheeks. She said, "My mom was hurt. She said she was taking me to the hospital. But we never went to a hospital. We just kept driving and staying in motels, and she kept saying we had to wait and my mom would meet us soon. But I knew something was wrong. Mom would have called me. Mom would have come herself. So I knew she was lying, but I didn't know what to do." The girl's voice cracked and she wiped at her face with the blanket. "I was so scared. I thought maybe nobody was ever going to find me. I thought maybe I'd never see my mom and dad again. And then this morning, I found that marker in the bathroom, and I thought maybe if I wrote something on my shirt, someone would see it and help me. And you did. You saw me." Reaper reached out slowly, giving Emma time to pull away if she wanted, and when she didn't, He rested one large hand gently on her small shoulder. "Emma, I need you to hear something important. What happened to you was not your fault. You did everything right. You trusted your instincts when something felt wrong. You looked for ways to ask for help even when adults weren't paying attention. You were brave and smart, and you survived. And now you're going home to your parents, who love you and have been looking for you every single minute you've been gone." Emma leaned forward suddenly and wrapped her thin arms around Reaper's neck in a fierce hug, and this massive former Marine who'd seen combat in 2 wars and 20 years of law enforcement found himself holding a traumatized child and fighting back his own tears. "Thank you for seeing me," Emma whispered against his shoulder. "Thank you for not driving away. Thank you for blocking her car. Thank you for staying until the police came. Thank you for believing my shirt." "Anytime, kid," Reaper said, his voice rough with emotion. "Anytime. That's what adults are supposed to do. We're supposed to pay attention. We're supposed to believe kids when they're asking for help. And we're supposed to act even if it means causing a scene or looking foolish, because your safety is worth all of that and more." 40 minutes later, a blue minivan came racing into the parking lot and screeched to a stop near the ambulance. A woman in her mid-30s with light brown hair burst out of the driver's side before the vehicle had fully stopped, and a man about the same age emerged from the passenger side right behind her. Emma saw them and let out a sound that was part sob and part cry of relief, and she jumped down from the ambulance and ran toward them with her arms outstretched. Her mother dropped to her knees and caught Emma in her arms, and the 3 of them, mother and father and daughter, collapsed into each other on the asphalt of that truck stop parking lot, holding each other and crying with the kind of raw emotion that made every officer and EMT in the vicinity have to look away, because witnessing that kind of reunion broke something open in your chest and rearranged it into a different shape. They stayed like that for long minutes, Emma's mother sobbing into her daughter's hair, Emma's father wrapped around both of them with tears streaming down his face, and Emma clinging to her parents with desperate relief. When they finally pulled apart enough to breathe, Emma's mother looked around wildly until she spotted Reaper standing beside his motorcycle. She stood up, still holding Emma's hand, and walked over with her husband. Her face was streaked with tears, and she could barely speak through her emotion. "Are you the man who saw her, who stopped the car, who called the police?" "Yes, ma'am," Reaper said quietly. "My daughter," Emma's mother tried to continue, but her voice broke completely. Her husband stepped in, his own voice shaking. "The sergeant told us what you did, how you noticed Emma's distress, how you saw the message she'd written on her shirt, how you blocked the woman's car so she couldn't escape and stayed on scene until officers arrived." He paused, struggling with the weight of what he needed to say. "Our daughter was missing for 3 days, 72 hours. We thought we'd never see her again. We thought she was gone forever, and you brought her back to us. How do parents thank someone for that? How do we possibly express what you've given us?" "You don't need to thank me," Reaper said. "You just need to hold her tight and help her heal and make sure she knows she's safe. That's all that matters now." Emma's mother pulled Reaper into a hug, and he stood there awkwardly accepting the embrace of this stranger whose life he'd just changed forever. When she pulled back, she was still crying, but there was fierce gratitude in her eyes. "Emma told me about the marker, about writing those words on her shirt this morning, about showing it to people who didn't notice or didn't care. She said you were the only person who saw it and took it seriously. You were the only one who stopped." Emma tugged on Reaper's vest, looking up at him with those blue eyes that had seen too much in 3 days. "Can I show my parents your motorcycle?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of the normal 9-year-old girl she'd been before this nightmare began. "My dad likes motorcycles. I told him about how you blocked the bad lady's car with your bike." Reaper smiled, the first real smile he'd managed since this whole situation began. "Yeah, kid, let's go look at the bike." Outside the immediate crisis zone, with her parents flanking her protectively, Emma explained to her mother and father in detail how Reaper had positioned his Road King behind the Honda, how he'd stood there refusing to move even when the woman honked and yelled, how his presence had kept her from being taken away. The girl's trauma was still visible in her tension and hypervigilance, in the way she kept touching her parents to make sure they were really there. But in this moment, she was also just a 9-year-old girl excited about a big motorcycle. "Can I sit on it?" Emma asked, looking up at Reaper hopefully. He glanced at her parents, who both nodded, and he lifted Emma carefully onto the bike seat. Her face lit up with the first genuine smile he'd seen from her, and for just that moment, she looked like a regular kid instead of a trauma survivor. "When I grow up, I'm going to learn to ride motorcycles," Emma announced to her parents, "and I'm going to help people like he did. I'm going to pay attention when other kids need help." "That sounds like an excellent plan," Reaper said quietly, and he meant it. The Peterson family stayed at the scene for another hour while Emma was formally interviewed by child welfare specialists, and detectives built their case against Diane Keswick. Before they left to drive back to Murfreesboro, Emma's father approached Reaper one more time. "We'd like to stay in touch if that's all right with you. Emma talks about you constantly, about the biker who saw her when everyone else looked away. We'd be honored if you'd be part of her recovery, if you're willing." "I'd be honored," Reaper replied. Over the following months, the Peterson family and Reaper maintained contact through messages and occasional visits. Emma's trauma from the abduction required professional counseling and careful support, but she healed with the resilience that children possess when they're surrounded by people who believe them and validate their experience. She spoke at her school about the importance of trusting your instincts and finding ways to ask for help even when it seems impossible. She talked about how writing those 2 words on her shirt had saved her life because one person had paid enough attention to see them and take them seriously. When Emma turned 10, the Peterson family drove to Nashville to visit Reaper in the Cumberland Riders Clubhouse. Emma wore a special vest the club had made for her, youth-sized, with a patch that read, "Honorary Cumberland Rider," and another patch that said, "She asked, we answered." The club had started a community awareness program after Emma's rescue, teaching people to recognize signs of child abduction and distress, encouraging adults to pay attention in public spaces, and emphasizing that causing a scene or looking foolish was a small price to pay if it meant potentially saving a life. They called it the Emma Grace Initiative, and they distributed thousands of awareness cards throughout Tennessee showing warning signs and what to do if you saw something wrong. That afternoon at the clubhouse, surrounded by bikers who'd become Emma's extended family, Reaper gave her something he'd been saving. A framed photograph taken by a security camera at the truck stop, showing the moment Emma had looked directly at him through the car window, her face desperate and terrified in the seconds before police arrived. The image was grainy, but you could see everything that mattered: the fear in her eyes, the message on her shirt visible through the window, the determination of a 9-year-old girl who refused to give up. Below the image was a caption Emma had helped write. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is find a way to ask for help, and sometimes the most important thing you can do is pay enough attention to see someone asking." Emma studied the photograph for a long moment, then looked up at Reaper. "I want other kids to know what I learned, that even when you're really scared and nobody seems to be listening, you keep trying to ask for help, because eventually someone will see you. Eventually someone will believe you. Eventually someone will act. You taught me that asking is worth it, because people like you are watching." Reaper looked at this young girl who'd survived something terrible and had chosen to use that experience to help others feel less alone. "Your parents raised a remarkable kid," he said. "You helped raise me too," Emma replied. "You showed me what it looks like when adults pay attention and take children seriously and choose to act even when it's easier to look away. That's the kind of person I want to be when I grow up." The story of Emma and the truck stop became part of Cumberland Riders' identity and spread through motorcycle clubs across Tennessee. It was a reminder that their role in their communities wasn't just about charity rides and fundraisers. It was about being present and aware and willing to act when vulnerable people needed someone to see them and believe them. Over the next 2 years, the awareness training inspired by Emma's case led to 3 other successful interventions by club members who recognized signs of distress and acted on them. 2 were children signaling for help in public places. 1 was a teenager being moved by traffickers. Each time someone paid attention instead of looking away. Each time someone trusted their instincts even when it meant causing a scene. Each time a life was saved because one person chose to see what others missed. Reaper kept that pink t-shirt with "Help Me" written in shaky black marker, given to him by Emma's parents as a reminder of why awareness matters. It hangs in the Cumberland Riders Clubhouse beside the security camera photograph, and every prospect who joins the club learns Emma's story as part of their education about what it means to wear these patches and be part of this brotherhood. The message is simple but profound. Pay attention to the people around you, especially children. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Be willing to act, even if you might be mistaken. Be the person who sees when others look away. Because one moment of attention, one decision to take a frightened child seriously, one choice to block a car and call for help can be the difference between a child going home or disappearing forever. Emma Grace Peterson is 14 now, confident and strong, an advocate for child safety who speaks at schools and community events about trusting your instincts and finding creative ways to ask for help when you're in danger. She still visits the Cumberland Riders, still calls Reaper uncle, still wears that honorary vest to club events, and every time someone asks about the message on her childhood t-shirt or the story of that day at the truck stop, she tells them the same thing. I was 9 years old and terrified and desperate for someone to see me. And a biker in a leather vest was the only person who looked closely enough to notice 2 words written in marker on a pink shirt. He could have driven away. He could have convinced himself it wasn't his business. He could have assumed I was fine and kept going. But he didn't. He saw me. He believed me. He acted. And because of that, I'm here today telling you that your attention matters. The children in danger are often trying desperately to signal for help in ways that require us to truly see them, and that one person choosing to pay attention and act can stop a nightmare in progress and bring a child home. If this story has reminded you to pay attention in public spaces, to trust your instincts when something feels wrong, and to understand that children in crisis are often trying to communicate in subtle ways that require us to notice them, consider sharing it with others who need this reminder. Every person willing to observe instead of just looking, to question instead of assuming, to act instead of ignoring, becomes part of a community that protects the most vulnerable among us. Tell us in the comments, have you ever noticed something that felt wrong and acted on it? Have you taught the children in your life that finding ways to ask for help in emergencies is smart and brave? Your awareness matters because predators and abductors count on bystanders looking away. And every person willing to truly see becomes someone who can bring children home.